Hi everyone, I'm Christina Iltz. I just want to apologize ahead of time. I'm getting over a very terrible cold, so if I sound a little hoarse and the fact that this is not a video, trust me, you don't want to see that. This week, we're talking about the impact of dams on fish species. And so I went ahead and looked at two dams in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Detroit and Big Cliff dams kind of go hand in hand, so that's why I looked at them together. They're on the North Fork of the Santiam River, and you can see they're down here kind of a little bit southeast of Salem. And Detroit and Big Cliff work together, even though they're separate. They're about three river miles apart. And Detroit Dam is a hydropower and flood control dam, and Big Cliff is a re-regulating dam that helps with the flood control. The reason I chose these two is currently right now fish passage is a really hot button issue at Detroit, and there's a lot of things that are going on in the Willamette Valley with I don't know if anyone's heard of it in the industry, the Willamette Valley litigation. And one of those is basically just the Corps is not meeting their requirements from the 2008 NIMS BIOP. And so they're not meeting the RPAs, which is reasonable and prudent alternatives, and which includes things like they have to do a downstream fish passage structure by 2023, and there's supposed to be a temperature control tower installed in 2018. And so it's delayed. It's not there yet, but they're literally in the middle of working on the plans and stuff right now. But the structure would control the temperature of water that goes downstream, and it would provide downstream fish passage for juveniles. So that's why it's, kind of one of those fish passage. It's important. It's an important structure to improve fish passage at Detroit. And so, yeah, that's basically why I chose it. I have a coworker who's working on this project specifically, and she's doing all the environmental compliance for it. And so I know it's a doozy. She's going a little crazy. So I was interested in reading up a bit more on the impacts of this dam in particular and what projects are coming up to improve fish passage. So at Detroit and Big Cliff, the species that are affected specifically are the spring Chinook salmon, which is, I might butcher this, I apologize, Oncorhynchus shaicha is the Chinook, and the winter steelhead is Oncorhynchus micus. And both of them fall under the same evolutionary significant unit, which is a designation under the ESA, the Endangered Species Act, and they fall under the upper Willamette River, because they're all part of that big Willamette Valley. Both of them are anadromous fish species, which means they're born in fresh water and migrate out to sea for years and then return to their natal streams to spawn and then die. And overall, salmon are a very, very important species, considered a keystone species, and they're very important to the ecosystem. So it's important to have them able to go up and down the rivers. It's very important. So some of the impacts to fish resources that dams have, they block migration corridors, which means other fish passage means usually have to be created. For example, fish ladders. This over here up in the top right is a picture of the fish ladder at the John Day Dam on the Columbia River. Or they have to do something which is called truck and haul, or trap and haul, where basically they literally trap fish above dam, put them in a truck, take them downstream, and then on their return journey they do the exact same thing. And so they literally just truck them around the dam. It's not exactly, it works, but it definitely causes stress to the fish. Some more impacts the dams have: they change the seasonal water temperature variances, and salmon are very particular about water temperature. If it's too warm or too cold during the wrong time of year, it can induce early or late development of fry, and it can kind of trigger migration early or late, and it changes the general physiology and behavior of the fish. And it can also, because a dam creates a lake and removes a river habitat into a lake habitat, it fills in prime spawning and rearing habitat areas upstream, and then it changes the flows, sediment deposit, and the temperatures downstream. And that in particular is why Detroit Dam is required to build a temperature control tower, because they're affecting the downstream temperatures. And a lot of times the impacts that dams have to fish resources, they try to compensate for population numbers with hatchery programs. And there have been a couple of studies that have shown that hatchery fish are just less hardy, and they kind of change the genetic diversity, if I remember correctly, of the populations when it's wild versus hatchery fish. So that is the general idea of the things I was looking at for our assignment 2. And yeah, enjoy this picture from Detroit Dam on a site visit. So thank you for your time, and I hope you're all having a great week.